So President Obama has apparently been listening to Bernie Sanders' campaign rhetoric on the issue of Wall Street regulation, and he's annoyed. He's not happy about it. So Reuters reports here, quote, President Obama on Monday defended his efforts to rein in Wall Street, telling Americans on both sides of the political spectrum that his administration cracked down on banks and trading firms after the financial crisis of 2007 and 2009. Quote, I want to emphasize this because it is popular in the media and the political discourse, both on the left and the right, to suggest that the crisis happened and nothing happened. This is not true. Regulators appear set by the end of the year to achieve most of the goals set out for the financial system in 2008. Okay, so he goes on and he's like, me? Soft on Wall Street? No, I was super hard on Wall Street, bro. Let me tell you. I mean, gosh. I'm such a strong president who cracks down on Wall Street. Totally. Now, here's the sad reality about that. It's not true. Now, when you look at Glass-Steagall, which is the main accomplishment that they're talking about here, the historic Wall Street reform, it's the most significant reform since the Great Depression and since FDR implemented some regulations. What they're not telling you about that is it is massively weak, and there are gigantic loopholes in it that basically allow the people on Wall Street to get away with doing whatever they want to do, and to get away with doing exactly what they were doing that led to the crash in the first place. Now, again, Obama's going to come out and say, oh, come on, that's not fair, that's not true. But why is he doing that? Because, guys, this is part of his legacy. This is one of the cornerstones of his legacy, where he was able to check the box. So he wanted to pat himself on the back. He was able to say, oh, under my administration, we had historic Wall Street reform. God, I'm so good. Pat myself on the back here. But again, he's not telling you that in order to get that through, he watered it down tremendously, caved to the Republicans, and then on top of that, ever since it was passed in bill after bill, piece of legislation after piece of legislation, the Republicans have slowly but surely taken out different provisions of Dodd-Frank that did effective things. So it wasn't all bad. There were some things that were good in there, but there were gigantic loopholes, and it allowed Wall Street to go back to the same kind of speculation and stuff that they were doing before. But even the effective parts have been taken out one by one. It's the old Republican trick of you take like a farm bill or something like that, some must-pass necessary piece of legislation for something totally different, and then you attach to it a provision that repeals a part of not Glass-Steagall, I'm sorry, Dodd-Frank, and then you come back and you're like, what do you mean? We did historic Wall Street reform, so when the next crash happens, what are the Republicans going to say? It was because of the regulation. Now we got to deregulate more. Disregarding the fact that the regulation was weak in the first place, and then you took out all the effective provisions later on. So, no, Obama's trying to defend his legacy here. Obama's trying to defend his name. He's trying to keep that check marks in the box. But we see right through you, President Obama. Like, who are you kidding? Any Wall Street expert, any financial regulator who knows anything about what they're talking about, looks at it and they go, oh my God. Like, this isn't, you didn't do anything. Have you ever stopped and wondered, why is it that, Wall Street not only rebounded, they reinflated the bubble? Have you ever thought, hey, that's weird, that seems like it's probably not healthy? No, right? Well, look at the numbers. President Obama nearly doubled the stock market. Now, Republicans should love that, of course, but all that is reinflating the bubble, including the housing bubble, so allowing Wall Street to go back to their old tricks. And it's faux growth in the economy. We've covered the actual numbers where middle-class people, poor people, there's almost no recovery for them whatsoever. This so-called recovery is going to the top 1%, and it's going to reinflate the bubble on Wall Street, and there's going to be another crash. And then, again, it's actually more nefarious than that, because what's going to happen is when there is the next crash, it's all going to be blamed on Obama and the liberals and the regulation, when the problem was that the regulation was too weak and whatever was good, you repealed. So the problem's going to be the lack of regulation, and it's going to be blamed on more regulation, and this was all because Obama wanted to have that check mark in the box which says, I did historic financial reform, even though it was weak. And the final thing I'll say is, here's how you know it was massively weak. One of the main things that led to the subprime mortgage crisis and the Great Recession is the repeal of Glass-Steagall, the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, which was signed by Bill Clinton and pushed by Republicans under his administration. So what that did is it made it so that there's no longer a firewall between commercial banking and investment banking. So in other words, when you go to your local bank and you do a deposit, you're doing it with some assumptions like, oh, they're not going to take this money and do crazy casino capitalist bets that are almost certainly going to blow up. That's what you think. Now, back in the day, that was the case. They could only do safe investments with your money. But when we got rid of Glass-Steagall, you got rid of that firewall between commercial bank and investment bank, and you go put the money in your local bank, and they're using it on puts and calls and all types of casino capitalist bets that, as any gambler knows, eventually that's going to blow up, and that's going to tank the economy and take your money with it. So in this so-called historic financial reform that President Obama did, we didn't even bring back Glass-Steagall. One of the main issues, one of the fundamental problems that led to the economic woes to begin with. They're like, yeah, let's not bring that back and do other window dressing to do reform in name so I could get the check mark, but still appease my Wall Street donors by not actually cracking down on them. And this is why Bernie Sanders is out there saying this stuff, because Bernie Sanders is right. He's like, you didn't do fundamental reform. We don't even have fucking Glass-Steagall back, and you're going to brag about this like we cracked down on Wall Street? Give me a fucking break. So that's where we're at right now. And, you guys have the choice. You see it directly in front of you. It's, you go with Hillary Clinton, who pretends like Dodd-Frank was all we needed, which it's not. Or you go with Bernie Sanders, who's like, look, I still see the problem. It's right in front of our face here. There's going to be another crash, and it's going to be because of the lack of good regulation. So you're going to need to get the regulation in place. And Obama's still out there playing pretend. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he actually thinks this was strong, which is nearly inconceivable to me, but maybe he does. But he's out there saying, oh, I did it already. Look away, look away, look away. No, you didn't do it. We needed FDR 2.0 when the subprime mortgage crisis and the Great Recession hit, and we didn't get that. We got a corporatist, pro-establishment, center-right Democratic president and Democratic Party that did window dressing reform, which didn't significantly address the problems.